Now, I'm Ankur Rimjhim at Sify Technologies. Joining me today is Ray here, who is retired from the US Coast Guard and is a senior training and development specialist at Equinix. Joining us is Vijay from Sify Technologies, and he is the head of New Tech Solutions. And with that, I'll let Ray take over and share the Equinix journey.
Awesome. Okay. Well, as she said, my name is Ray. I work for a data center company. We are a global company. We'll go over some of that stats here in a little bit, but I do work for the Learning and Development Department. When we set off on our journey, especially from the Equinix side, we really need to understand what are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to achieve as a learning and development organization within a major organization? And one of the mindsets that we have as far as a learning and development team is we need to meet our learners where they are, provide them the information they need when they need it, and give them what they want, how they want it. I think COVID was really an eye-opener for many people, especially in the learning and development stage, that the old ways of doing training is no longer viable. So we needed to figure out another way to give the information that is needed at that time. We also understood that we needed a partnership. And you're going to hear me say this quite a bit throughout this discussion, because it is a true partnership. I am coming from the lens or the viewpoint of enterprise. We're not developers, we're not into the XR field, but we do have a goal, we do have a vision, we have a journey, and we really needed that partnership to come in with us and help us in this journey. We're also going to go a little bit into the discovery phase of some of the things that we learned, so that, especially for those of you who may be in enterprise, we've learned a lot, and there's a lot of things that we can pass on to help others throughout that journey. And even if you are a developer, understanding some of the things that we had to, or obstacles that we had to go over, it'll be beneficial for you. So at Equinix, we are a global company. We have over 240 data centers throughout the globe in 69 metros and 30 countries. We have over 10,000 staff members, and over 65% of those are operations. I do work for the operations learning and development, so do the math. We have over 6,500 people that we need to train on a regular basis, and we're like, oh man, how do you get over that mountain? And like, you know what? Let's just start off small. Let's take a small subset group of staff members within that, and let's take a look at the new hire onboarding experience. Let's test out our proof of concepts, this VR XR technology, into a learning development, and let's see what happens. Let's just try it out, test it. So with that, we said, well, we know we need some kind of automated content delivery, right? This is the new world, new paradigm. We have to automate this learning and development strategy. It has to have a global reach. You have to be able to develop this and be able to get it out to pretty much everybody around the globe. And like I said, we were looking at, let's just take a look at people who are new to Equinix, whether it's through a merger and acquisition, whether they've never stepped foot inside of a data center before, they've never even been in the industry, or perhaps they've been in the industry for a while, but now they're hired on with Equinix. So let's take a look at those folks. We also understood that we need a partner in our journey, right? We're learning development, we understand the culture, we know the subject matter, and we have a vision and we have a roadmap. But what we don't have is the XR expertise. We finally got a hold of Sify, and they have been a partnership with us throughout this entire journey, and I really must stress that it has to be a partnership. Whether you're a developer or whether you're an enterprise, it takes both to work together to make this vision happen. So they are going to help us create the solution and also manage the project. We're not project managers. We do training. That's what we're really good at. But we needed help with that. And we really needed Sify to understand what is our internal culture and everything about us. And in turn, they needed, we need that from them, and they need that from us. And that's creating that partnership. You can't look at it as an us and them or vendor-client relationship. Everybody's in this together. So looking at some of the traditional approaches, as I said, COVID shifted the mindset of a lot of people. We understood that the old way of doing training is no longer viable. You can't have live training all the time. You can't have an instructor in a classroom with 20, 30 people inside of it. So there's got to be a better way to do this. Also, the online training of what we call happy clicking, right, where you have a slideshow and some type of LMS that new hires come in and they just happy click through and get to the end, answer a few questions, and they're off and running. But I think it's widely understood that they're going to be front-loaded, especially as a new hire. You're going to be front-loaded with a whole lot of new information that may or may not be pertinent to you at that moment in time, and it's not really fun. It's not engaging. So there's got to be a better way. When we're looking at a recent survey that we conducted, we found out some surprising facts. I know there's a huge mindset of the digital immigrants, digital natives, things like that. So we really wanted to find out, is this true? Does this actually in fact happen? And if Equinix is going to be hiring in new people coming into the workforce, would they actually prefer virtual reality or some type of augmented reality training? And what was kind of surprising to us was that those surveyed from 5 to 30 years in the workforce, 50 to 60% of those actually believe that would help them to react on the job better. So it was kind of counterintuitive to what some people were thinking. We also found out that 48% of those between 21 and 30 years in the workforce believe that immersion or VR training would help them better retain information. And 67% of 18 to 24-year-olds did believe that virtual reality would be more fun and engaging. So, so some of the data is, okay, that kind of makes sense. 67% of 18 to 24-year-olds, absolutely, yeah, let's do some VR. That sounds like fun. But when we were also looking at some of the people who had been in the industry for some time, they actually thought, this would be pretty cool. So, what did we set out to do? Well, let's take one building. We went out about and identified one building within our portfolio, and we mapped out one floor. That's at 124,000 square feet. So that's a three-story building. There's a lot to be mapped out. So we made a digital twin of just one floor. And remember, this is just a proof of concept test. We just want to try it out, see if it works. So we mapped out 124,000 square feet, and it's real scale. We decided we're going to roll this out in 2 locations. So we're going to test this in the United Kingdom, and we're going to test it in the U.S. As people are coming in, we're going to give them the opportunity to receive some new hire onboarding training through virtual reality. We also understood that, immersion training may not be the best for everybody, so it has to be deliverable in 2 modes. It's the same concept, same content, but we're going to have to deliver that in both full immersion through the MetaQuest and also through a WebGL model. We also decided, let's make it fun. We'll throw in some badging, some gamifications. We can still run data and analytics off of the results, but make it fun, right? Give them something to aspire to or work for. And with that, the VR platform, let's look at, not only new hires, but it has to be scalable. So when we determine that this is successful, what other content can we put in? Remember, these are operational employees. They're working with their hands. They're working with HVAC equipment. They're working with UPSs and fiber optics. You name it. These are operational folks. So how can we also add more into that content as we build and grow into the future?
Yeah, thank you, Ray. I mean, what you saw in the video is more of the entire solution. What you would have seen is like, I mean, there is a platform that allows you to manage your 3D assets. Because, I mean, here we are not really looking at one project where we are kind of done with it and then we are kind of moving out. So as Ray was kind of pointing out, I mean, we are kind of creating 124,000 square feet of the entire corporate office and bringing that experience. So there is a lot of scope for, reusability of all these 3D assets in future for all hard skills and soft skills kind of a training as well. So, I mean, thanks, Ray, for setting this context. And the next 10 minutes, what I'm going to kind of talk about is how to go about scaling XR, though it's going to be specifically focused on VR. This could be same applicable as to XR as well for enterprise level of scaling. So maybe the next 10, 15 minutes, I'm going to kind of package the entire 10 years of Sify's experience in implementing XR at scale. And for different domains, again, Equinix is one of our customer, like a technology customer. So we've been working with healthcare, pharma, medical devices, manufacturing. We have been providing, I mean, believe me, I mean, our first project was in 2009, doing an augmented reality project for higher education at that point. Even when it was a time where we were kind of using Macromedia Flash and Layer, kind of an AR app at this time. So again, I'm going to talk more from what are the best practices in terms of scaling up for enterprise VR. So predominantly what you need to kind of consider. And then again, please don't take this as more like a goal standards that you need to kind of adhere to. But what you're trying to do here is like, I mean, provide you an experience about like, I mean, what are lessons learned over those years, and then maybe you want to kind of share that with you. So when it really comes to VR implementation at enterprise level, especially talking industry level challenges, if you really look at it, I would kind of bucketize that into 4 major categories. Of course, three are quite major. So I'll see like, I mean, challenges regards to organization and business, and then technology and infrastructure related challenges, and people associated factors, which is one of the key factors. I mean, you need to kind of consider, because at the end of the day, if your solution needs to succeed at an enterprise level, it has to be adopted by the people in your organization, right? That's how it goes. And of course, I really want to kind of touch upon a little bit on the other critical parameters that you could really kind of consider when you're looking at implementing solutions, any VR or AR solution at an enterprise level. I'll go through this in much more in a detailed way, each of these components. Okay, so starting with organization and business practices. Again, in the last 10 years, from our experience, I would say any organization that have started kind of doing an XR or a VR project, right? It's always more from a top-down approach rather than, it's more of a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down approach. When I say what I mean is, you need to have, the entire XR vision and then the policy and everything driven from the top. So in most cases, what really happens is like, say for instance, even in Equinix, when they started, champion like Ray, who's more from the L&D function, was kind of driving this entire engagement forward. That's exactly how it is being taken up. Is a bottom-up approach doesn't really work? I'm not saying so. It does work, but the challenge is the ideal situations, you need to have more like a top-down approach, because it's not like any other training or a learning project, because it's something similar to totally an IT software system development and everything, where you need to bring in the right skills and stakeholders in place so you could really have a proper vision and a strategy in place. It's just not about implementing XR for your training organization. You could really kind of take it to your other functions as well. So the process has been standardized. People could really kind of adhere and follow to it. That's more important. The second critical factors or the best practices I would definitely say is about, defining the XR program outcomes that you want to kind of achieve. Again, trust me, if you're not really kind of stitching or marrying the right kind of solution modality to the problem that you're addressing, you're not really going to get the right type of result. So it's going to kind of give in a failure. Again, from my personal experience, we have run into failures. We have run into failures at larger organizations for pharmaceutical companies that we have implemented, which we kind of learned our lessons. Maybe whenever you want to kind of start with, consider, I mean, the audience profile. I mean, what is the implementation and then adoption risks that you need to kind of consider? So when I say the adoption risk, right, it could be age as a factor, as Ray was kind of calling out in survey form. I mean, the surveys are quite interesting. It's just people have been saying, I mean, if an organization is having more like an age-old population, maybe there could be a reluctance in people kind of accepting VR. I mean, that's not the case at all. We have seen across sectors, I mean, that's not the case at all. I mean, the same thing has been shown in what's Ray's survey as well. So evaluate all of the adoption risk. And again, I can call one example of adoption risk. I mean, maybe I'll just not talk about success. I mean, I'll talk about a failure case here. So for one of a pharma company, I mean, we kind of implemented a VR solution like with an haptic glove, and it was for an R&D scientist. So the moment, I mean, it was a POC, it was a protocol, it was a proof of concepts we were trying to kind of implement for them. And these haptic gloves, I mean, people who are into the technology know they are not still up to the standards. I mean, yeah, there are still a lot of challenges using haptic gloves and stuff like that. And again, the use case wasn't really fit in, but they were saying like, okay, maybe they shouldn't have really tried it. And because it's just not about the glove as a problem there, it's actually the entire end use case, right? Basically the entire audience. The scientists were not really comfortable kind of wearing these gloves and then getting trained in a laboratory setup in a virtual world system, wearing these haptic gloves. I mean, that's what it is. So that's what, I mean, you need to kind of understand all this. I mean, that is one of the lessons, like, I mean, as Ray was pointing out, Equinix did that study. I mean, trying to see, like, I mean, what really works for the audiences. There is a buy-in from the audience. That's exactly what they're trying to do through the survey, and then getting this solution being implemented to the end audience. That's exactly what they're doing. And the last point, when at an organization, the business level, I really want to kind of focus on, define the ROI measures. That's very critical. Upfront in the project. If you're not really going to define, and if you're not going to say, like, I mean, whether it's going to be a qualitative measure or a quantitative measure, don't worry about it. I mean, define it, right? So that you know what you're going to measure. Even when you're going to start with the POC, it's very, very, very critical here. So moving on to the technology and infrastructure, right? In terms of assessing readiness technology and have a technology strategy in place, that's very key. And if you really look at the market, I mean, it's been flooded with XR devices and XR technology. I mean, how you're going to choose, right? Maybe involve the right partner, maybe bring in your IT department, I mean, into the decision-making process, bring in all the stakeholders right in. So it's just not about the IT function that you're talking about. I mean, assess what, in terms of readiness of technology, what strategy that you want to have, right? That's more critical here. So, and again, in terms of rolling out the solution itself, so for instance, as Ray was pointing out, we were kind of delivering the same solutions in 2 modes. So I'm not sure. Oh, okay, it's went back. Okay, it's the timer. Okay, so it's actually in 2 different modes. Okay, maybe I'll go back to the slide. Okay, it's not working. Okay, so again, yeah, we are here. So we have to really kind of consider the accessibility as one of the factors. So it's not like all people are kind of comfortable with VR as a solution, right? So what within an organization, if people are not really comfortable, how we are going to cater their needs as well. So that's exactly why we have the WebGL mode, which is actually accessed via your browsers, right? So again, in terms of immersion, it's not going to be 100% immersion as a VR, but still it's going to serve purpose, and you're enabling accessibility, I mean, bringing in inclusivity within your organization as part of your training. So start with small. Again, I did explain about the examples of where a POC failed and all of that. I mean, even if a POC fails, it's okay because it's failing at a small level, and then you kind of translate that into a higher experience, right? And then moving on to people-associated practice. So again, I'll just categorize it in 3 major levels. So if you have a team internally, I mean, you want to build in-house skills, I mean, try to build the right skills and then start implementing it. If not, leverage on a technology partner. And people readiness is very critical. And again, any first-generation technology that you have here has its own teething issues. Again, it was same with the computers, it was same with the mobile devices. It's same with XR devices right now. People need to kind of understand how to use it. We used to kind of run a lot of roadshows for people to see, like, I mean, to educate them, forming a group of people of 5, getting them used to it, orient them to the device and all of that, and then once they become comfortable, and then they kind of move on. So another key thing is involving the right stakeholders. Again, this is just not the list of the entire stakeholders that I'm talking about. As you see, involve even your health and safety team. We have experience, even putting an employee who had worn a device, because of his claustrophobic nature, he was kind of literally shivering. That's the kind of an experience. You don't really want to have that kind of an experience for your employees. Involve HR, involve safety team as well. Yeah, data privacy and InfoSec is very critical part, all right? That's very, very important. If you're going for a meta kind of a device, that's fine. You're already going to leverage on the enterprise version. If you're going for some other device, have your MDM infrastructure team. Legal is also quite important, critical in this aspect as well. Again, if you're going to roll out for different regions, different countries, know the rules and regulations. What works here for the US may not really work for China. What works for China may not really work for European Union, right? Because the rules and regulations are very different. Again, this is just a classical example of who all you could really kind of involve as part of your experience. And to finally touch upon a little bit on other critical practices, since we are talking about designing this entire training experience in 3D, you set up XR design standards for your organization and also as process. Not necessarily it could be like a one-time development and then a deployment, or you want to have a DevOps system for a continuous deployment and a delivery. It could really go any other way, right? And again, from a scalability standpoint, look for multi-platform delivery. It could try to leverage the same what you did for the VR. Try to see there is a use case to bring in the efficiency and then deliver something on AR as well, because more people are comfortable with AR than a VR, because people are not really comfortable wearing a claustrophobic device like a VR. A see-through AR is much more fun for them. So look at a multiple platform. So the 3D assets and management of 3D assets, that's very critical, because try to bring in a lot of automation as part of your process with all the 3D scanners and everything that is coming in place. 10 years or maybe even 5 years ago, it was not an option. We need to go with more like a traditional or conventional way of developing all that. But now, and again, it's just not about bringing all these 3D models or maybe or developing these 3D models. It also ensure that within the organization, it has a reusability. Maybe a team one is using, so the same assets should be made accessible to other teams to use it, right? That's how you go with. And XR integrations and enterprise application, that's one of the key. When we talk about XR, it's just not about learning management systems, right? So it's not about training. You are trying to integrate with your business process. Whatever the real-time data that you want to fetch in within your XR system, try to bring in here. You really need to have a strategy for that. And the last that I want to little bit talk about the XR reporting and analytics strategy. This is really directly tied to the ROI strategy that you are trying to define. And when we talk about XR reporting and analytics strategy, an organization already has a legacy LMS system, learning management system. How you are going to bring all the data in one place, because so that gives you more like a comprehensive dashboard for you to look at and then see, to make your decisions, whether the training work, whether what the users are saying. you're going to redesign it. Bring in all aspects of it. That's more of the critical factors that you need to do it. So with this, as I said, don't consider this as more like a gold standards that you want to adhere to. These are our lessons learned and practices that we are bringing, that we want to share. Maybe you can just take this as lessons home. You can connect with us. We have our LinkedIn profiles here. You can scan and then connect with us if you want to. We can open for questions if you have time. Yeah, good. Thank you.